Hi lovelies, welcome back to the channel today. So in today's tutorial we'll be going about the sewing of this underbust milk-made corset shirt you see right here on your screen. So I'm here to fix a button at the center of mine. So you can see I use my office pin to just bring these two together. So this particular shirt has these ruffles around the sleeve area, as you can see right here. And if this really sounds like something you're interested in learning how to do, please continue watching, and don't also forget to subscribe to my channel. It's never going to be a thing of regret. Thank you to all my subscribers, and without much ado, we'll get started with what we have for today. So we did all the drafting and also the cutting in the first part of our tutorial. So this is basically going to be the second part. So the first part, which is the sewing tutorial, will be linked in the comment section, and trust me, it's detailed 100%, and it's also a beginners friendly tutorial. So you have to watch that first part of this tutorial before you continue with this second part, so that you can understand every steps which I took right there, from the drafting to the cutting. And if you actually watch the first part of this tutorial, we are 100% good and okay to continue watching the second part of the tutorial. So as you can see from the video right here, I have already gone ahead to draft and also cut out the way I drafted. So the next is to actually place this on my fabric which I'm working with and cut this out. So I want you all to know that my fabric is on fold right now, and then I placed all my pattern paper on them on fold before I'll go ahead to cut this out. So I also added stitching allowance all around at the necessary parts, and like as you can see right here, I actually took my time to go about all of this. So I just had to increase this speed a little because this was all included in the first part of this tutorial, which was actually the drafting part. Okay, so here is for the cup area. Also go ahead and add stitching allowance all around, including the top part. So repeat the same thing for the back part of this our dress or our shirt. And by the time I'm done cutting out all of this piece on my fabric, I'll now go ahead to start assembling all of these drafted pieces. So here now is what I have. As you can see, I have the center front, I also have the side and the cup. So you're going to actually mark that exact point where your button allowance stop for your center front and notch, just the same way I've done right here. So I remove these pins from my pattern paper so that I can go ahead and separate this front part of my shirt, because you know this is a shirt, so it's separated into two, so it will be joined together using a button. Okay, so by the time you fix your button, all right, so now I went ahead now to place this properly, and now cut this through from the middle or the center. Okay, so make sure that I arrange it properly and they align as well. So having done this, I now have two pieces for the front part of my shirt. So here I have now is the back part of my shirt, which I'm also going to work on right now, and I'll also work on the cup part of my shirt. So now for this cup part, I'm actually going to fold it inward this way from the right side to the wrong side this way and stitch. So I'll weave it first before I go ahead to stitch. But if you don't have a weaving machine, just go ahead and fold in two times, before you stitch, because you need to have a space in between for our elastic to pass through. So all around your cup, please go ahead and also run a gather stitch all around on your cup. So here now is for the front part of my dress. So you can see I've ironed in some piece inside, which I'll be explaining. So for my button allowance, you have to iron in at least half of an inch, and please make sure you actually use a hemming gum to do that. Then after doing that, you're going to fold in again and iron, and make sure that the ironing stops exactly on your button allowance. So when you must have achieved this, you can see what I have right here. so you have to stitch. So before I go ahead to do that, I'll have to fix or pass this elastic through this casing I've created on the cup area of my dress. So now I've gone ahead to stitch that top part of my cup. So I'm going to pass this elastic through and hold it down with my pins if I move over to my sewing machine to secure my elastic at both ends. Okay, so remember I said you should run your gather stitch around your cup area. So when I was running my gather stitch around my cup area, it's actually gathered on its own. So you can go ahead to pull yours slightly if it doesn't gather on its own. Okay, so now for this part of my front shirt, from that half of an inch you iron inward and you iron with your hemming gum. You have to flip it backward this way and make sure that it stops exactly on the notch. So you are turning it backward to the right side and you stitch using half of an inch. This is to achieve a neat finishing at the top part of our shirt, okay, because this dress doesn't have a lining. So assume that I've done that. Now I just want to show you all how to stitch your cup to your dress. Okay, so let's assume I've done that right now. I'll just pin this. So after pinning, I'll have to remove this pin when I move over to my sewing machine to stitch it properly. Okay, so now from that notch which we have, now you're going to place your cup right side facing your shirt. So you're going to pin this all around. Okay, so for the gather stitch which you actually have around your cup area, you can actually pull this or increase the size of your cup so that it can fit in around this your cup area. So you pin this all the way around and up to the armhole as well. Okay, so after pinning, this is what you should have. So I'm going to also go ahead and stitch using half of an inch all around. So this is what I have done this for the two parts of my shirt. That's the front part actually. So this is what I have, and do remember that I've stitched that button allowance area so that I can have a neat finishing at the top part, as you can see right now. So you can see, and I've also stitched my cup area. So this is for the back. Go ahead and fold in the back and iron as well. Fold in twice if you don't have a weaving machine. So right here is another piece of fabric for the sleeve part. So I have this fabric folded into two because I want to draft out the both sleeves at the same time. So I measured out what I had. It was 1 yard and 2 inches. That is 36 plus 2 inches. So that was all I had. So I folded this again, making it 4 folds right now. So I want to cut out the two sleeves at the same time. So I'm going to get rid of these rough edges at the top part of my fabric by just ruling this line, which is going to be my guide. So from this line which I've ruled now, I will measure out 1 inch. So that 1 inch will be for my channel or my casing where my elastic will be passing through. Okay, so this 1 inch I have right now will be for my folding allowance where my elastic will be passing through. So when you're now done with that, get one part of your dress. So I got the back on the armhole. I placed it towards that side that has open, okay, not the other side that is entirely closed. So I traced out my armhole. I cut off the excesses I have at the top part of my sleeve. So from that 1 inch which I marked from that top part, I marked the length of my sleeve, which is 8 inches plus 1 inch for hemming allowance. So I now had to chalk this out and now cut this out. So I cut off these excesses you see right here, and also separated this other side. So when you do this, this is how close it's going to be, and this is exactly what yours should also look like. So having done this now, I'll go ahead and fold. I'll weave. Actually, I'm going to weave the upper part and the lower part of my sleeve, and I'm just going to iron as well. So if you don't have a weaving machine, fold twice to get rid of the rough edges, but since I'm going to weave them before I fold, I'll just have to fold it once. So I'm going ahead now to do this, and you can see what I have. So this is the upper part and the other part is the lower part. So this elastic will be fixed at both sides, but for the upper part of our sleeve, it will pass through the channel we have already at that top part after folding. So you're going to fold to ensure that your elastic can easily pass through. Okay, so with my safety pin, I have to carefully do this. And now I'm using my office pin to pin that my elastic on this other end, and I'll drag this and make sure that it's not so tight, because this my elastic is not that really tight one, so it's a nice elastic. Okay, so be careful while purchasing your elastic. So when I was okay with the stretch I had so far, and I went ahead to also use my pin to secure this other end, right? And I'll cut off these excesses after pinning. So now for the hem, you know there's a way this sleeve is, right? So to achieve that effect, we're actually going to run our elastic on top of our fabric. So I was considering whether I should use the white or the black elastic, but I ended up using this black one because of the black print we have at that area. So I marked 1 inch from the hem or the base of my sleeve upward. So on exactly that 1 inch mark I made, I placed my elastic, and now I'm going to pin this first. So if I'm stitching, I'm going to run a stitch on top of this my elastic, but not just like that. You have to stretch it. So you have to stretch it. You see, when you stretch and run a stitch on top, it's going to form these ruffles you can see right here. So I was trying to use my hand to illustrate what it will look like by the time you run a stitch at the top part of this elastic. So I'll start now to join the front part and the back part of my shirt at the sides. So arrange them, the front part at the back part on the armhole area and also on the sides, so you can see that mine really corresponded properly. Arrange them at both sides and go ahead and stitch using the stitching allowance which you gave to yours while you are drafting. So I gave a stitching allowance of 1.5 inches, so that's what I'm going to use to stitch at both sides after arranging this and pinning this properly. So you all can see what I have right now. So I'm just going ahead to mark my stitching allowance. You got it all on tap. I'm loving your vibe, always have your back. We like all the same track. So leave about half of an inch at least from your armhole so that your sleeve can perfectly fit while you are fixing your sleeve to the body part of your dress. So I've gone ahead to do exactly what I've shown you all. And you can see that the 1 yard and 2 inches fabric I had, you can see how small it's now looking because of the presence of elastic. So I'm now going to fix it to the body part of my dress. So I'm going to get one part of the armhole, right side facing the camera. I will get one part of the armhole on my sleeve. So I'm going to make sure that I place it armhole to armhole, right sides facing each other this way. So you realize that automatically the armhole will correspond. That is, the armhole on your sleeve and that on your dress will correspond. So you go ahead and pin. When you're done pinning for one side, or for the back part or for the front part, you go ahead and also repeat the same thing for the other part of the armhole. Remember, you're pinning right sides facing each other. So you can use 1 inch or half of an inch to stitch this from that top part. Okay, so after pinning, you're now going to flip this to the wrong part, arrange the ends or the hem of your sleeve, and you're now going to stitch straight into the body part of your dress. So this is what I have when I was done. So for your button, just go ahead and mark 3 inches spaces or 2.5 and fix your button. So when you are done with everything I've shown and explained to you all so far, this is exactly what you're going to achieve. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please don't forget to subscribe in case you've come this far and you're yet to subscribe. And I'll see you all in my next one. Do have a lovely time ahead of you all. Bye.